So I want to take a moment to leave a video about something that absolutely terrifies and disturbs me almost more than anything else, and that is the position taken by banks and institutions across this country that they have the right to kick down your door, to change the locks, to throw your property into the street, or sell it if they care to, whenever they care to. The industry is taking the position that they have the right to do this even when you are not in foreclosure. The industry is taking the position that when you gave them a mortgage on your property, you gave any old bank the right to come and kick down your door, to change your locks, to throw your property out into the street, or to sell it if they care to. I want us all to stop and think for a moment what that means. I want everyone in this country to think about one of the fundamental beliefs that you hold as an American. I think part of the collective American experience is we believed that we had the right to be safe and secure in our homes and on our property without fear of unreasonable searches and seizure. And yet, as we see all across the country, our rights are being trampled like never before. But next to the right to speak freely, which is absolutely being decimated and destroyed all across this country, I can think of no other right more fundamental, more key to the American psyche and the American experience, to that right we thought we held, which was when we were in our home, we had the right to be safe and secure. And yet what is occurring all across this country in numbers that are underreported, and yet they are extraordinary. Contractors hired by banks are kicking down doors of people's property. They're taking the position that they do not need to provide any notice. They do not need to provide any warning. They do not need to call ahead to let you know that they will be kicking down your door. They do not need to send a letter. And they absolutely do not need an order from the court. Now, I believe that all of that is wrong. I think that there is a basic, fundamental American right, which is when you go into your home, you have the right to be safe and secure, and that no one, no law enforcement, and certainly no bank, has the right to kick down the door without notice. Now, let's think about searches in the context of law enforcement. Theoretically, at least, if law enforcement wants to kick down your door, they have to go to a judge and get a search warrant. They have to produce probable cause. There is a process, a procedure, whereby they get court approval before they kick down your door. Let's think about in the context of a landlord-tenant relationship. If you are renting a property from someone who owns that property, the landlord may not simply kick down the door anytime that landlord chooses. In fact, in the state of Florida, there's very clear statute and case law on that matter, that when you are a tenant lawfully possessed of that property, the landlord may not kick down that door. And in fact, there are quite severe penalties if a landlord decides to do that. Even in cases of emergency or inspection, when something's wrong in that house, that landlord must be able to demonstrate that in fact a pipe was broken and there was real damage that was occurring, and that's why they had to get in there. They cannot simply use this as an excuse to break into property. Sometimes landlords would attempt to harass tenants or affect an eviction of a tenant by turning off power, turning off water, or changing locks. And so we incorporate into statute very specific prohibitions against that. And again, this is in situations where you're merely a tenant in property. And so let us think about this dramatic situation that occurs when lenders have taken the position that the mere fact that they have a mortgage on the property gives them the right to kick down your door and change the locks on your property. as we sit back as Americans and we watch our fundamental rights be absolutely decimated, when we watch the Constitution that our founding forefathers fought and died for to give us rights, as we watch the Constitution that soldiers spilled blood all across this world defending and supporting, as attorneys and officers of the court who have sworn to uphold the basic rights that are contained within the Constitution become aware of these fundamental violations, it is incumbent upon every single American, every single one of us, to stand up and say, we must not allow these violations of our basic rights to continue to occur. These are terrifying times that we live in. And unfortunately, too many Americans are not heeding the warning of the desperate situation that is occurring in slow motion right in front of us. Every time a bank is permitted to kick down the door and change property, every time these basic rights that we have are violated, the rights of every one of us are desecrated. The Constitution that soldiers died for, that our founding fathers fought for, is desecrated. We need to understand the world, the unsecure world that we are delivering to our children, to seniors, to the most vulnerable of the populations among us. It is absolutely long past time that all Americans stood up and spoke for basic rights and said, we will stand together to support and defend the right of Americans to peaceably and properly protest and petition their government. We as Americans will support and defend the right of all to be accommodated and to be given due process in the court of law, which are properly funded and which are fair and honest and equitable. And we as Americans will stand together and we will say that every American has a right to be safe and secure in their home. We must say this in jury boxes. We must say this in the public square. We must make it a cause that we will not allow basic rights to be violated. We must insist that our lawmakers understand these rights. We must insist that our judges stand up and protect and defend these rights. We must insist that law enforcement officers understand these basic rights and do not enforce laws which are repugnant to the Constitution of the United States of America and which are violation of our basic rights of Americans. This subject terrifies me about more than anything else. And I'm begging that all of you will share these examples and to share these issues. Begin real, profound conversations about what this means to our American idealism, and consider what you will do to protect and defend your country. Desperate times, folks, call for people to stand up and do real things. Calling on each and every one of you to engage in conversations on the internet, with your friends, email, Facebook. Do it now, because if you don't, you may lose the chance and the opportunity to ever do it again as this country slips deeper and deeper into tyranny and oppression.